life of a parent, isn't it? Yeah, kids think, I don't know, they don't. I have never been a shepherd. I've never known a shepherd. I've never been around sheep. I don't know anything about sheep other than what I've read, but I do know that the Bible says that we are all sheep and we've gone astray. Isaiah, the prophet, said, we have all gone to our own way, but the Lord has laid on him, that's Jesus, the Messiah, the iniquity of us all. So I don't know whether sheep are dumb, but I do know that sheep wander. That's their job, is just get lost. And I want to talk about how important it is to see our children as sheep. So I want to kind of get into that, what it means to be a shepherd parent and how important that is. So we welcome you to Grace this morning. I trust that you'll enjoy what God has in his word for us. You may need a Bible. Just raise your hand. The ushers will hand you a Bible if you need one. You're welcome to use that during the service, and we're going to track along. When you get that Bible, if you turn to the book of Psalms and Psalm 23, one of my favorite passages in the Bible, I want to get into this whole matter of sheep. Those of you online, by the way, we welcome you as well. Glad to have you with us. This is a sheep. You probably recognize as sheep. Let me tell you a little bit about sheep. I don't know whether sheep are dumb or not. I don't know enough about sheep to say that. I always hear people say, sheep are really dumb and we are sheep. That's a little bit insulting, but I do know that sheep get lost and sheep are vulnerable. And sheep need a shepherd. And I see our children. But not only our children, I see the people that we lead in our businesses. If you're a leader, you have influence. And that influence needs to go through this grid. I don't want you to see the people you lead or even your children as dumb. I want you to see them as needing good leadership. And so I kind of want to talk about what that really means. Sheep have a tendency to band together. They don't like to touch each other, but they like to be near each other. Sheep will follow the front sheep, and they don't act independently. They act dependent on each other. And one thing that you might notice is that sheep don't blend into nature, which makes them very vulnerable. I'm over here hiding. You can't see me. Yes, I can see you, says the wolf. And I can get you. No, you can't see me. In front of a bush. Hey, sheep are the worst at hiding. They have poor eyesight. Even worse hearing. And they have one defense mechanism. It is this. Baa. Baa. And translated into English, that means, please don't eat me. That's all they got. In fact, let's take a day in the life of a sheep out in the field, and let's call this sheep Maurice. This is Maurice. Glad to meet you, Maurice. Maurice sees a wolf. Well, he doesn't actually see a wolf. He thinks he sees a wolf. Anyway, he's scared, so he starts to run. And the other sheep don't know what's going on, but they start to run. And they're all running, and they run really fast. They don't know why, but Maurice says, hey, there's something after us. And so then they even run faster. And then the slowest sheep is eaten. And the chase is over. So now they can relax. That's sheep definition of defense. Sheep are not sharp. Their job description is hide, follow, whatever. But they need good leaders. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what it means to be a parent shepherd or a shepherd parent. Several years ago, I read this book by Jim Collins called Good to Great. And in his book, he presents what's called a level 5 leader. And he goes through the different stages or the different kinds of leaders they have. If you've ever read that book, it's a genius book. It's great on leadership. And I got to thinking about that. And I was thinking, what if we were to rate parents based on these different levels? And so what I've done is develop over the last week what it means to be a level 5 parent. And so I broke it down. Level 1 parent is a provider, someone who provides. This provider gives basic provisions for food and nourishment and clothing and even affection. All children need that. All sheep need that. And what it produces, if that's all we give, a level 1 parent is someone that produces adults that are contingent. The word contingent means that you are dependent upon something other than yourself to find worth. And you can provide well for your kids. You can provide them food and clothing and nourishment and even affection. But all they're going to become is adults that are contingent. In other words, they're going to look to possessions and they're going to look to people to provide for them a sense of worth. Well, a level 2 parent is someone who does the second step, and that is they affirm their kids. And when they affirm their children, they reach the heart of that child. And that's an awesome thing, and it goes beyond this provision. But really what that produces is kids or adults that are confident. But being an adult is more than just being confident. And a level 3 parent is someone who disciplines his or her children. And the discipline takes on the form of teaching, consequences to behavior, both positive and negative controls, discipline that says, this is what happens when you do this, these are the good things that happen when you do that. And so what this does is produce adults who have a moral compass. They have a sense of value. So they not only have confidence, but they have a sense of value. Well, what about a level 4? A level 4 parent is one that goes beyond discipline. They do all of those things. They provide, they affirm, they discipline, but they take it a step farther and they nurture their children. And some of us think that's all we need to do, and it reaches that emotional component, and it provides kind of an interactive discipline. I talked about this last week, where there is a great deal of listening to your children. If you don't listen to your children, you're not going to be able to discipline them properly. They don't all think the same. So what we do is we listen to what they say, we interact with them, and properly lead them into a lifestyle that is better than just a moral code. And what this does, a level 4 parent is someone that produces adults that have compassion. So not only do they have a sense of self-worth, but they have compassion for other people. But I want to talk about the level 5 parent. And the level 5 parent is a shepherd. Now, a shepherd has a unique relationship with his or her children. And what they do is they enter into intimacy with their kids, intimacy with the sheep, so to speak, and they know each other. And they know the heart, and they know not only the emotional component, but also the spiritual needs. They let their children test their faith. They let their children ask questions. They answer their questions to the best of their ability. And what this does is produce adults who are godly. Now, that's an ominous word, godly. And we really don't oftentimes get a definition for godly, but let me give you one. Godliness is simply an obsession with the presence of God. That's what godliness is. A godly adult or a godly child is someone who is constantly aware that God is there. God is present. God protects, God leads, and life is about God. Life isn't about self. So it produces, when we have a shepherding parent, it produces adults that not only have compassion and a sense of self-worth and confidence, but it produces an adult who has a deep understanding of the value of God in their life. They make God their worldview. Only shepherding parents can do this. So I want to talk about what it means to be a parent who leads at this level. You know, I got to thinking, before I get into this, in Psalm 23, please turn there. In Psalm 23, my favorite passage on shepherding, I got to thinking about, and I talked to Pastor Nolan, who is in charge of life development. Life development is everything from nursery all the way through high school. And his staff that he has work toward coming alongside families. And I have a long list of the things that this church provides for your children to come alongside you to help you parent your children. But I just gave a short list that I want to share. First of all, pre-K through elementary, what they do is they learn a Bible story every week. And along with that Bible story, they are given memory verses. And what they do then is they send home to the parents ways in which the parents can come alongside, reinforce that Bible verse as well as that story that they've learned, that biblical story. And what this does is it provides opportunity for the parents to come alongside these kids and help develop them spiritually. So we as a church take it very seriously, your children's development in the middle school and high school areas, our youth. What they do there is they put these youth all the way starting in the middle school into small groups. And the way that they do that, or the reason that they do that, is so that young people will be able to, in a safe place, begin to ask questions and be with someone who actually knows them. A leader in the youth department is someone who knows them and works with them and kind of helps them through the process of the difficult years. You know, it's hard for teenagers to talk to their parents about things they might be ashamed of or things they might question. And so they need a place that they can go. And so we provide this for your children to come alongside you. We also have ways in which they can learn to have their daily devotions and spend time in prayer and develop a spiritual life. And at certain stages, I think 3 stages in life development, from childhood all the way, or infancy all the way through high school years, there are Bibles provided for them and devotional materials that are provided for them to help you as parents. The church really wants to come alongside your families, and I would just encourage you, this is not a recruitment moment for people to work in our life development area, but I'll tell you what, there is nothing more valuable than you investing your time in the life of our kids. It's so important. My grandmother in this church for 40 years taught 3rd graders. I see guys that are my age and a little older than me that said, you know, Lula Mae Scott, Mrs. Scott, was my 3rd grade teacher. And she did that for all those years, committed. She didn't do it twice a month or once a month. She did it every Sunday. Now, we're not expecting that. What we're asking is that you would invest in those kids. All right, the end of the plug for that. But I think it's important. I want to talk about the 5 characteristics of a shepherd parent out of Psalm 23. These 5 are very important. The first one is this, that this shepherd parent provides safety. Look, if you will, with me at verse 1 of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. Now think about that. If the Lord is your shepherd, then that means you are sheep. And if you're sheep, you don't blend in well. And you're vulnerable to attack. And you need a shepherd that knows what your needs are. And this shepherd cares about you. He's not a hireling. He is someone that actually loves and cares for you as a shepherd would his own sheep. But it says, I shall not want. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures, and he leads me beside still waters. 2 things there. He is one who takes you to the green pastures where you can lie down and rest and be nourished and be safe. Think about a green pasture. And there's this open space far from the trees and far from the mountains, out in the middle where no wolf can come without being seen long ahead. And the shepherd protects from these predators that would attack the sheep. We need a shepherd, and we need parents who provide that safety, that place where children can be safe in growing up. And he leads us beside the still waters, the place where we can drink water in safety. Parents provide safe place for nourishment in safety. This is so important as a parent, that you provide safety for your children to grow at the speed at which they can grow, to understand that not all children grow the same. Shepherds understand the sheep and understand what their needs are. Do your children feel safe? Do they feel safe in your home? Do they feel safe? Do they feel nourished in your home? Even with their flaws, do they feel safe to be flawed? Do they feel safe to fail and to be restored? Do your children know that you love them enough that no matter what they do, that they are safe with you? If you're a leader in your business, do your employees, do those people with whom you have influence, do they feel safe with you? Do you lead them? Are they always feeling threatened that they're going to be fired? Or have you worked with them to say, this is how you can become an excellent employee? You see, people need to have fear removed. They need to have hope, and they need to have safety. That's the first thing that shepherd parents do. The second one is this in Psalm 23. They focus on the heart and the soul. Look at verse 3 with me. It says, he restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. God, for his own glory, begins to lead us into righteousness. But I love that opening statement. He restores my soul. A shepherd parent is someone who looks to the soul of their children and begins to look at them in terms of restoration. It literally, the word restore means to go back to the beginning, back to the place before the flaws, before the failure, before the mess up. And if you can take your children back there and say, here we are, we're back to a place of wholeness and we can move ahead in growth. Do you seek wholeness for your kids? Do you seek wholeness for those people with whom you have influence? Do you let them return to that place of beginning? Leaders and parents who shepherd well, they let flawed people move back to wholeness. The third thing is this: they are present in troubled times. Look at the next verse. In verse 4 it says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Again, removing that fear. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. There is something powerful about the presence of the shepherd. The shepherd in John chapter 10, Jesus refers to himself as the good shepherd. The sheep hear my voice, they know me, and I know my sheep. And that intimacy is there because I'm present with them. Dads, get home with your kids. Mothers, get home with your kids. Make sure that you have maximum exposure because fear is only removed when you are present. He says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Think about what David is saying. Remember this. David, the writer of Psalm 23, was in his previous life, before he became king, he was a shepherd. Now, I don't know that there's a place called the Valley of the Shadow of Death. I think that he made up this hypothetical place based on his experience. And I think David's looking back to this place that he refers to as the Valley of the Shadow of Death. Think about this. You're in the middle of an open field. Everything's fine. There's plenty of room for safety. But now you walk through a valley, and it's a narrow valley. On either side, there are rocks and trees. And inside and behind those trees are wolves and other predators that would come down and get the sheep. And what he's saying is that as a sheep, even though as a sheep I'm vulnerable, I can't hide, I'm not that sharp, that the Lord is my shepherd and he's present, so I'm not afraid because he, the shepherd, is there present with me. There's something so powerful about the presence of someone who has greater strength than you, and that's what shepherds are. My father died when I was 41 years old. When I was 41 years old, the very week that he died, I was still calling my dad to get his advice on things. And oftentimes I would be at the end of myself and desperate and afraid, and my father's voice would come over that phone, and I could hear that deep, strong voice that symbolized for me my whole life strength and power. And I felt so relieved that my father was present, even though it was over the phone. It made me feel childish in some ways, but I'll tell you, I needed the presence of my dad. Parents, don't underestimate how much your kids need your presence. My oldest daughter turns 40 years old this month. She still leans on me. She still needs me. It is still a powerful thing for me to connect with her and say, babe, it's going to be okay. I'm here. Everything's all right. She's got a husband who's awesome. When I grow up, I'd like to be as mature as him. But for some reason, her daddy, which she still calls me daddy, still sits on my lap, still needs that affection, still needs that presence. It's a powerful thing to be present. Don't underestimate that. Leaders, don't underestimate the influence you have with those who are following you. I'm twice the age of most of my staff. And my staff looks to me, not for perfection. They look to me for strength. They look to me as a mentor. And I need to be present with them. I need to have exposure to my staff, especially my direct reports. It's some powerful thing to be present. So the other day, I get this text from Shara, who turns 22 this summer. And she says, Dad, where are you? It's like, I don't know, the morning. I'm like, okay, I'm working. And she said, but where are you? Desperate text. I'm like, what? And so I call her, and I get on the phone, and she said, I had a horrible dream last night. And she said, there were 6 tornadoes in our backyard. Now think about the size of a tornado, 6 of them fitting into our backyard. This is one crazy dream, I'm just saying. And she said everybody in the house was afraid and nobody knew what to do. I mean, Mom's there, the brothers are there, Gracie's there, everybody's going sideways, they're all afraid, and we tried to find you and you weren't there. Where are you? I go, babe, it was just a dream. No, where are you? And I said, babe, listen. No matter what happens, I'm there for you. She said, I know. Isn't it a powerful thing? 22 years old, you still need your daddy. Don't underestimate that. Be home, be present. Touch your kids, talk to your kids, love your kids, be strong for your kids. Don't whine to your kids. Don't use your kids as a counselor. You ever do that? Listen, I really need to talk to somebody right now. But Daddy, I'm 3. You need to be present. They need you. You need to be a shepherd parent. The next thing is that a shepherd parent provides correction and protection. And this is a little bit of a difficult part of this psalm. It says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. That's why I don't fear evil. Your rod and your staff, the rod and staff, they comfort me. Think about that. The rod is a club, and the staff is that hooked staff that would reach in and get a sheep out of a thicket or get them in a directed place. But the correction comes from the staff as well as the leadership. But the club was primarily used, it wasn't used to beat the sheep. The club was used to scare off predators. And so when I know, God, that you are present and that whatever predator comes after me, you will fight for me. You will stand ground for me. That's what shepherds do. They also have that staff that corrects their behavior, that directs their behavior. But I love this word comfort. And it seems like it's just an emotional comfort, but let me tell you the process. The actual word translated comfort here in verse 4, it actually means to regret, to resolve regret. You see, every one of us in this room fails. Every one of us. Every one of us is flawed. Every one of us is going to make mistakes. And every one of us is going to feel badly about it. And we need someone, a shepherd, a mentor, who is going to say, as in the restoration process, I'm going to take you back to the beginning, and I'm going to take you through the process. So let me give you the 3 things that take place in comfort of going after a failure, after a mistake has been made, or even a sinful rebellion has made. You skillfully take that child, that sheep, back to the flaw. And the first thing that they do is they have to address their regret, their shame, their guilt. The first thing that happens in a full restoration is you have to own the mistake. You don't rub it in their face. You help them understand this failure needs mercy, but this failure needs understanding. And so we take them back to the place of regret, and then we do the second thing, which is so valuable. We teach them how to accept forgiveness. You've been released. You've been given mercy. You've been given grace, and you are forgiven. And you need to not forgive yourself. You need to receive my forgiveness to you. You need to receive God's forgiveness to you. And that ability to receive that forgiveness helps them to go to the next step. And the third step of this comfort or restoration is a new direction of behavior. So we take them back to regret. We take them through a process of receiving and accepting forgiveness. And then we call them to a life of hope of a new direction. Every human being in this room needs it. And when you powerfully reach the soul of that child that God has given to you and let them know it is safe to be flawed, but it's also safe to grow through it and become and develop a new direction. That's what shepherd parents do. Parents, your job is to help your kids deal with their failures, deal with their flaws. Mentors that are in this room, mentoring younger, or leaders who are leading teams and influencing people. You need to do the same. If you're expecting perfection, you need to stop it and start taking a process of loving well as a shepherd and take them through the process of regretting the failure, owning the failure, accepting forgiveness, and finding a new and healthy direction. So I show this picture because my wife is, she likes to take old things and fix them. And so she took this old beat up ladder, which didn't look this nice when she got it. And she took these old pots, and this is out in front of our house. And she took this suitcase and turned it into a planter. It's called repurposing. And I thought you should know this because this is how I live, folks. This is my life. She took me and repurposed me. Let me show you another picture. This is neat because this old trunk, she put feet on the trunk, and then she took this and turned it into our media center. So what it does, this place you charge, you got your headphones there and everything always goes back. If you leave it on the couch, you leave it in the room or something, she go, whoa, 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 whoa. Put it in the trunk. So, I asked her, I said, where do you get these ideas? She said, well, I had that idea. And so I found out that she's on Pinterest. Have you heard of this nut place? How many guys do we have on Pinterest? Don't admit it. If you guys, oh, you're awesome. Yeah. See, I caught you there. You guys going, that'd be me. Well, you have to be very artistic because if I was on Pinterest, it would be dumb stuff. But anyway, I find out she has almost 5,000 followers on Pinterest. I mean, like, that's crazy because she does all these crazy things. And people go, oh, that's so delightful. I think I could do that. You need to do that with your kids. You see, what you need to do is say, hey, you messed this up, and maybe that's not the direction. Let me help you find a new direction, a new purpose, a new way of living. And I don't want you to pour into my mold. I want you to be the best and most excellent you can be. That's what shepherds do. They help their children repurpose their lives and become excellent. That's what leaders do. That's what mentors do. They don't try to get them to fall into the mold of their own life. They really seek to call them to a dynamic new direction. And then finally, the fifth characteristic of a shepherd parent is they give favor. Oh my gosh. There is something powerful when, as parents, your kids call you daddy. I'm sure it feels the same way as mommy. But for me, when my kids call me daddy or dad, it just reaches my heart. But I got to tell you something. The reverse of that is to say to your kids, not only are you my child, but I choose you. I choose you. Well, you were stuck with me because, I was born in your family, or you married my mom. To really powerfully be a shepherd parent, you have to let your kids know, I choose you, I favor you, I want you, I enjoy you. Look at this scripture. It says in verse 5, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. This is David talking, and David had a lot of enemies because David was a chosen child of God. He was a chosen leader, and there was a lot of people that wanted to kill him and fight against his leadership. But he said, not only did you prepare a table before my enemies, so you're making a show that this is my guy. Oh, you want to attack him? This is my guy. Remember, the Lord is my shepherd. The Lord is the one making this table in front of his enemies. You are my favored son, David. And then he says, you anoint my head with oil. That was not the anointing him as king. It's not some ritual. It's not some religious rite. This is actually something that took place in Jewish culture. In Jewish culture, when you would have someone come to your home, if they were a favored guest, what you would do is you have a basin. And the oil was not straight oil. It was other fluids in that. And those liquids were used to clean the face and to pull back the hair and to get ready for the table, for the meal. And only the favored guests receive the anointing of oil. And so in the presence of all the enemies, all the predators, all those people that would like to undermine your children's life, you are saying to them, this is my son. This is my daughter. I favor this child. Grandparents, you can do it. Parents, you can do it. Leaders, you can do it. When's the last time you went as a leader and said to your staff, not only am I proud of you, but I choose you. You are amazing. What that does, I don't care who you are. That feels good to hear that. My wife tells me, I choose you. I tell her, I choose you. A couple of days a week she doesn't, but most of the time she chooses me. She anointed my head with oil. That's what happened up here. But notice the response. The response is the spiritual, emotional overflow. My cup overflows. I am spiritually and emotionally overflowing with all the resources that God gives. I mean, what an amazing response. When you shepherd your children, you give to them this overflow. The overflow has a benefit because it begins to touch the lives of other people. Are you a shepherd parent? Are you a shepherd leader? Are you a shepherd mentor? This is what God has called us to. One final thing, and I'll close with this, is this passage ends in verse 6. One of the most amazing statements. Because our life is in two stages. Now, we've got a lot of stages during this life. It is the life that we now live, this present life on this planet during our earthly life. And then there is the future life after we die. And notice how David presents this. He says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That's this present life. So during this life, You're constantly giving mercy. You're constantly giving me goodness in the midst of difficult times. And he had many. God was there giving goodness and mercy. But then he says, and I shall dwell, future tense, in the house of the Lord forever. I will be in the presence of God forever. You say, how do you get there? How does he have such confidence? Jesus said to his disciples, I go to prepare a place for you. And I want you to come to be with me. I'm going to come back, but I want you to come. And they go, how do we know how to get there? How are we going to know how to get there? And he said this. Jesus said, I'm the way, I'm the truth, and I'm the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. You see, the way to eternal life, the way to dwell in the house of the Lord forever is to have that beautiful moment of faith where you follow Jesus. He's the way, he's the truth, and he's the life. Would you bow your head?